Now, one of the key gripes from Qantas workers is the gap between the salary of their chief executive and their workers. The day before Qantas boss Alan Joyce closed the doors on his staff, he got a pay rise up 71% to more than $5 million. Now, that's more than 60 times the average salary of a Qantas cabin crew member. And that kind of pay gap is not out of step with the rest of the world. British CEOs pull in 69 times more than their workers. Well, over the years, the pay gulf between the top and the bottom salaries has been growing. In the US, where the pay gap is greatest, top US executives in the 1950s earned about 24 times the average worker's pay. Well, now CEOs there get more than 140 times that of their employees. Well, for more on that, I'm joined from New York by J.A. Meyerson. He's a member of the Labour and Outreach Committee for the Occupy Wall Street protest group. J.A. Meyerson, it seems that CEOs all over the world pay themselves huge salaries and huge bonuses while they continue to squeeze the workers. Why is this disparity in pay getting bigger and bigger, do you think?
Well, because the ownership class is consolidating its control over the democratic governments around the world. It's no coincidence that this is happening in Europe and in Australia and in the United States, in these ostensibly democratic countries, because that cover of democracy, of ostensible democracy, where there's reasonably well-respected basic rights and there are regular elections that are contested by candidates from multiple parties, that cover allows for an awful lot of mischief and greed to go on behind the scenes, because there can be a tyranny of corporate wealth that can still advertise itself as not participating in a tyrannical government.
Does this mean then that big corporations will always have the upper hand over their workers? Because if domestic labour costs get too much, they just move to cheaper markets like Asia or the Indian subcontinent, which is what Qantas is doing. They want to move a lot of their business base to Asia. So the corporation always seems to win out, and the workers always seem to lose.
In the current calculus, that will always be how it is. You know, in China, for instance, workers are in these dungeons where they're essentially paid slave wages and subject to the will of really, really horrible managers. And that is where corporations will always go, because a corporation's sole job is to increase the revenue that they can furnish their shareholders with. And so when the drive is to accumulate wealth instead of to provide for a thriving economy and to provide a sort of humanistic commitment to the betterment of people and the sustenance of a sustainable world, the result will always be something like that. What we currently have is a system that incentivizes that incentivizes government officials to sell out to the big corporations, and that incentivizes the corporations to lead to the widespread immiseration of large sectors of the economy, because that is the way that they're able to maintain huge windfall profits. So what has to be changed is the entire systemic calculus before we can see real reforms that will make a difference in people's lives.
You talk about China. Let's look at a very successful company like Apple. I mean, most of its production for many of its iconic products like the iPod, the iPad, the iPhone, they're all made in China. But cheaper production costs, on the other hand, also means cheaper prices for you and me and our viewers as consumers. So what's wrong with that?
Well, consumers are enjoying the benefits of a lot of immiseration, are enjoying the benefits of terrible labor conditions, enjoying the benefits of horrible abuses of the environment, are enjoying the benefits of warfare that is incinerating bodies in many, many countries around the world. If we were talking about the true cost of things, then, for instance, oil would be much more expensive than it is, because it costs an awful lot to produce, and it destroys a lot of the world in the process. So essentially what will have to happen is that there will have to be what Dr. King called a revolution of values, where materialism and militarism are subject to de-emphasis, and what we begin to focus on is compassion and kindness and generosity and the morals of all the stories that were told as children, that when the CEOs who are bankrupting these economies and demolishing the world tell their children, they're lying about.
All right, Jay Meyerson there in New York, thank you.